I'm gonna be completely fucking honest. I got nothing for this intro. I'm just keeping it real. Like, you knew this was coming. You knew I'm sorry.
Hey, be a squid and subscribe to my mediocrity.
Alright, what's going on, everybody? Today we are talking about the community of MMORPGs, kind of in general, obviously relating to BDO and why it actually matters a lot. And I think it's something that things and I meant to say people there, but I said shut the fuck up, alright? It's something that people tend to overlook or just kind of label as purely toxic, and I think it's something that when people look at it, they just look at it in the negative light, and they don't really actually praise the community for actually what it is, because if you've been on BDO long enough, you would know that there's a lot of interesting and cool people on the server. Obviously, there's people that are trash and just do dumb shit, and you generally ruin everything and just annoy people, but overall, there's a reason the community matters in an MMORPG, and I'm going to use like World of Warcraft as a reference point because the community evolution of WoW is very, very interesting given the fact that I played back in the Burning Crusade days all the way till current expansion, and holy shit, it sucks. Now, when I'm talking about World of Warcraft, back in the day, the community used to be very tightly knit. It was just like everybody knew everybody. No matter what server you were on, there was the top players, the elitists, the people that generally just got worlds first, and you know those guys. You want to be a part of those guys. Back in the day, there was also, you gotta sign up on a website to join their guild, interviews, PvP trials, so on and so on. Even to this day in BDO, some of that stuff actually exists where you have to go through PvP trials and all sorts of stuff, but overall, it's just like kind of irrelevant to what we're talking about, but either way, you get the point. The community was very, very close and connected with each other. If you needed a healer or a tank, you knew who to go for. You knew like at least 3 to 4 to 5 people off the top of your head that you could message and just see if they were down to, tank some heroics or just do some raids, whatever. There was a ton of people you could know and message as long as you knew who they were, and typically you would always know because everyone was always in general chat talking. Nowadays, World of Warcraft's kind of weird servers and population is kind of disconnected. This varies from server to server, obviously, but currently on some of the servers that I play on, it seems very, very disconnected. There's not a lot of activity going on in the chat. There's never really... I don't know anybody. It just feels weird. It's very disconnected with the introduction of the queue system, the raid finder, all that stuff. It feels like you're just kind of... like, you just don't know who's who. You're just like, whatever. And this makes it incredibly hard to pug groups for, mythics and stuff like that, which are just basically high-end dungeons. And you just kind of take shots in the dark for people that may or may not be bad or good. Like, we were doing some Mythic Pluses the other day, me and my brother, and we got like the world's worst fucking DPS that just had no clue what the fuck he was doing. He just kept pulling all the worst mobs and Tal Dazar, and y'all may not know what that is because you're not WoW players, but just you can skip a lot of the mobs in that dungeon, and this man was just running it down mid basically and just fucking blasting everybody. This shit sucked. And I don't have anything against new players learning the ropes or anything like that, but if we tell you to do something, you better fucking do it, especially if you're an idiot and you don't know anything like that. Like, if we know what to do and you don't do it, like, bro, obviously come on, bro. Now, the reason I'm going through with this long-winded explanation is because WoW was at the pinnacle at one point of communities. It was tightly knit. It was pretty fun and interesting. There wasn't a whole lot of political stuff going on in there, especially at the time back in the day. Twitter and all this like internet stuff wasn't really popping off back then, so everything was pretty wholesome. Obviously, like I said, with every community, there are the bad ones, but for the most part, almost every guild I was ever a part of was so chill, nice, very hopeful, respectful. It was crazy. It was nuts how respectful the community was back in the day. Now, how this pertains to BDO is that BDO's community is what WoW used to be. It is very tightly knit. You know basically everyone in the server. You know the top guilds, you know the top players. You basically know majority of the people that play the game, especially if they're good. And this is very important, not just because it's a tightly knit community, but because of what that means for you as a player. When you have a community that's so tightly woven and everyone knows everybody, there's this thing called community justice versus, dev punishments and stuff like that, where if you have a bad reputation in the game, you're essentially gonna get shit on. Like myself, I made a couple enemies yesterday when I was on Arsha. I was just fooling around, PvPing and stuff, and just I guess I made somebody mad, and it is what it is, They're like, oh, your whole guild's gonna die. I'm like, bro, it who gives a fuck? We fight to fight. It is what it is. When you reach that like 500 to 530 gear score, you kind of just like, that's all you can really do is just grind and fight people. Like, that's essentially the end game. So saying that, oh, you're gonna get farmed, or we're gonna fight you, or we're gonna deck, like, that's the end game, bro. So I would hope so, because if not, you're playing this game the wrong way. Anyway, that's a little off subject. Point being is that the fact is, whenever you have a reputation in a tightly woven community, you have an obligation to make sure your appearance is either on point or totally in the toilet, and just you don't give a fuck. Now, luckily for me, I don't necessarily have a good or bad reputation in BDO. Typically, nobody knows me. I've only ever been recognized twice in BDO, and they just whisper and don't mention it in the chat or anything like that. And I honestly prefer it that way, just because I'm not really all, I'm not high key or anything like that. I prefer to, stick to myself and just chill and grind and do whatever I do. It's typically how I play the game. Obviously, at some point, whenever I do get geared and I start doing way more PvP, I have, a reputation to uphold and a guild to uphold as well, which also ties into the reputation factor, because if you are a part of a guild, you are a representative of that guild. So whenever you do some fuckery, the guild is going to pay for it as well, so you have to think about them in retrospect as well. Now, in my case, I've got a few very high level fucking players in my guild. Won't say names, won't flex anything like that, but they tend to do whatever the hell they want, and they're higher gear score than me. They can fuck my ass up real quick, and I personally don't care what they do. Even if I did, there's nothing I can do to stop them anyway, so whatever. But in my case, I like PvPing. I like having my guild name out there PvPing. They're representing, they're putting in work, they're doing everything possible to make the guild look good, which is really nice, at least in my case. But because of that, we tend to get a little bit of a reputation that, like, well, we're a toxic guild because we go and fucking, we kill people or whatever. And like, bro, that's a part of the game. Like, if you did the same to us, I'm not gonna sit there and call you toxic. Like, that's part of the game. I mean, we don't go out killing AFK runners or anything like that. We're just running around in Arsha and square up on someone. If they fight, they fight. If they don't, they walk away. But this is why the community matters, because the community justice can almost be more harsh than the developer's justice. Obviously, being banned sucks dick, but I mean, I would rather be banned from a game than have my entire community shun me from just being a part of anything. I think that's probably the worst thing that could happen in most MMORPGs, especially if you're not banned, is that you can't walk 2 feet without being harassed by somebody, or you can't go anywhere without being killed, so on and so on. You can't join in on cool events because people literally don't want you to progress because they don't like you. There's a lot of things that can factor in when it comes to your personal reputation and guild reputation as well. And this is what makes the BDO community matter so much, is all this like extra stuff that people don't really think about. People just like to play the game, troll, have fun, and then expect just everything to be okay in the morning because you're not, as connected to the community as most other people. So, that's kind of like, what the fuck? I mean, that's your fault. And even though I'm not necessarily super connected to the community on the F1 servers, because that's typically where I hang out, is F1, but I've been swapping around recently trying to check out other servers to see the differences. But F1 has been my home for pretty much my entire Xbox just career on BDO, and I know majority of the people in there. Sylveon, Lily, fucking Shia LaBeouf, Satanist Child, fucking Captain Holt, the fucking, what's the dude, Doinks, whoever the days, I forgot his fucking name. These players, I know who they are, and I even still, like, it's like, I've never spoken to them personally, but whenever I see them around, I know who they are and who they represent and what they can do within the video game. So it's like, they have a reputation. And that's what's cool, is that it's something that carries weight in the virtual world that you wish to be a part of. And this goes for the same thing with guilds, like Arsha, Sacrament, Electric, Voltaic, fucking Plague, what was some of the other ones? Sacred Souls, I don't know if I said that or not. What was it? Nameless or something? Instinct, like all these guilds, Warcry, Shield Wall. I know all these guilds, so that's like, you kind of pay attention to these things not only for your own safety, but also for just, knowing what you can do and what you can't do against a bigger guild. Obviously, some of those guilds have a bit of a reputation for being a bit on the toxic side of things, but there's typically do's and don'ts on servers. Like Voltaic has a pretty bad reputation in terms of griefing trees. They tend to do that pretty often, I guess, because I hear that all the time, that Voltaic is always griefing trees, or that's just what they're known for. I've never personally seen it. I've never been griefed by them myself, but that's what I hear all the time. So it's like, once again, reputation, word of mouth. It traveled to me, and my only knowledge of them is being tree griefers. Like that's my knowledge of them. Compared to something like Sacrament, where these guys are like really good at PvP, they typically stick to themselves, they have their own like, you know, side of things where they can be toxic, but most of the time they're typically sticking to themselves and handling declarations of war on their fronts between the other top guilds. So they have a bit of more of a, not necessarily noble, but more of like a chilled, laid back reputation versus something like Voltaic, where everybody calls them toxic for griefing trees all the time, I guess. And the guilds that you should really be afraid of and the players that you should really be afraid of are the ones you don't know, because they may or may not be geared and you never know when you're going to get your cheeks clapped. There are plenty of guilds out there that have really high members that just know what they're doing about their game. Like I said, I got a couple members in my guild that literally they know their shit and they will fuck you up on a regular basis. Had a guy yesterday talking shit to one of them. He rolled up in Arsha, clapped him in less than 12 seconds. Dude did 0 damage, and I'm gonna tell you, he was about 540 gear score, the guy that was talking shit, and he didn't stand a chance in hell. It was literally like watching Zeus fight a midget with a spear. It just, there was nothing that man could do, and it was hilarious. And that's my point whenever I say watch what you say or watch what you do, because you have a reputation, and when someone calls you out, you have to answer it, because you're either going to be a bitch ass on the server which you don't answer any calls, or you're going to be the guy that got, you know, he ate his words realistically. So either way, you're gonna hold an L, just one significantly worse than the other, and you just have to deal with that. Anyway, that's been today's video about why the community matters in MMORPGs / mainly BDO, because that's what I play. But yeah, I just kind of felt like talking about it. It was something that inspired me. I think it was it was Mad Season, talking about the community and basically explaining, you know, how WoW evolved and whatnot, and that made me think why I enjoy the BDO community so much and why I like playing, aside from just, you know, grinding and, you know, PvPing and stuff. There's also the community side of things that I really enjoy as well. But that's going to be it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.